Hello everyone, you're very welcome to this webinar for the Level 1 and Level 2 Technical Award V Cert, which covers graphic design, interactive media and music technology. There are quite a few attendees on today's webinar, so unfortunately there'll be no opportunity to ask live questions, but please do feel free to ask your questions via the question box and I will respond in a timely manner after the webinar. My name is Kelly Johnson and I'm a Curriculum Officer at NCFE. My background is vocational education and I have 15 years of experience of working in the FE sector in various roles, including a teacher, a curriculum leader and a curriculum operations manager. And I have educated young people from level 1 to foundation degree level, including A-levels. My role is to support centres through the planning, onboarding and CPD processes for NCFE and cash qualifications, but in particular the V Cert qualifications with a focus on promoting and advancing learning. The plan for this webinar is to first give you a general update on the approach to awarding for the academic year of 2021-22. Then I'll provide a summary of the onboarding process, your journey with us, and the help and support that is available to you and your centres. Then I'll firstly go through a basic overview of the qualification, in which then I will go through it in more detail later in the webinar. I will then provide an overview of QualHub, which contains key information about the qualifications. I'll explain the externally examined assessment, including key dates, and provide an update on our approach to awarding for this year. I'll also explain the internal assessments, including this assessing the learner work, and provide an update again on our approach to awarding for this year. And finally, I'll explain the quality assurance process. So let me begin first by giving you an update on the COVID-19 response information. The government's intention is that work placements, exams and assessments will take place in the academic year of 2021 to 2022, therefore moving away from results being based on teacher assessed grades or tags used in the previous academic year where this was permitted. The government recognises, however, that students who will be taking exams and assessments have experienced significant disruption to their education and that these students may also need continued support in the face of any further disruption. We recognise that students who will be taking exams and assessments in 2021 to 2022 have had significant disruption to their education since March 2020, and we remain committed in continuing to support students in the face of any further disruption. In the academic year of 2021-22, under the Vocational and Technical Qualifications Contingency Regulatory Framework, or VCRF, all qualifications will move into Category A. This means all assessments are expected to continue, but we are permitted to continue to make adaptations to assessments and qualifications to take account of the ongoing impact of the pandemic, and where we can do so without undermining the validity and reliability of our qualifications. This is with the view that assessments will take place, but recognising that adaptations may still be needed to mitigate continued disruption from public health restrictions or to support with mitigating the issues with learning loss or any further disruption. Category B will be switched off from the 1st of September 2021, meaning this will not apply to any qualifications in this next academic session, but the provisions will remain in place for anyone submitting late tags for eligible learners who were expected to complete in the summer or complete assessments last session within the eligibility window up until the 31st of August 2021. So it recognises that some tags may be submitted late and makes provisions to support this. Furthermore, if tags have been submitted for mid-flight learners, they will now be banked. Learners must only access permitted adaptations where they are needed to mitigate the impact of learning loss, continued disruption and/or ongoing public health restrictions. This will be monitored through our external quality assurance process to support the validation of any adaptations adopted, ensuring they're not applied where not needed. The quality assurance policy for 2021-22 is now available on our website in the Approach to Awarding and Assessment section. The adaptation blueprint for 2021-22, which can also be found on our website, summarises the adaptations we have put in place for this academic session and how we are adapting the NCFE assessment requirements given the flexibilities afforded by the Off-Qual VCRF. The qualification addendums contain further information on what specific adaptations are permitted for the academic year of 2021-22 and are now available to access and view on your qualification specification page. I'd now like to talk you through your onboarding process, your journey with us, and the support we can offer to you and your centres. The provider development team are committed to NCFE's core purpose of promoting and advancing learning. To achieve this, there are 3 different stages: pre-approval, onboarding, and ongoing CPD. Pre-approval may have already occurred, and it is when your external quality assurer has approved your centre to deliver our qualifications. In the onboarding stage, once your centre is approved, the provider development team will support teaching staff throughout the year with a range of webinars, support interventions, which include a support call when you're initially approved and 2 more over the course of the year. Onboarding webinars such as this one to get you started with delivery. Pre-assessment preparation and signposting to sample papers. Key quality assurance processes and how to access teaching and learning resources. In addition to the onboarding process, the provider development team will also support centres with an ongoing programme of CPD, looking at topical and relevant areas of interest. And some of these may include formative assessment strategies, developing digital skills, revision strategies, and developing learner study skills, to name but a few. As our mission is to promote and advance learning, we have several resources available to help you with that. The key area will be Qual Hub, which is where you can search for all our qualifications and access the specification, assessments, teaching materials, and much more. We have schemes of work which will completely outline entire units of work based on 1-hour lessons. We have complete PowerPoint presentations with not only the teaching content from the specification, but also activities that could be used. There are also individual lesson plans for each presentation with suggested timings, lesson aims, learning outcomes, and suggested assessment activities. There is a workbook and individual worksheets to accompany the lessons, or they can be used as homework or flipped learning opportunities. And with all these resources, it is best to use them and adjust them to suit the needs of your learners. There are some on-demand webinars to support the Level 1 and Level 2 technical awards, such as revision strategies, formative assessment strategies, stretch and challenge, effective questioning, providing effective feedback, and digital skills. There are also on-demand bite-sized introduction webinars that include all the Level 1 and Level 2 technical award subject areas. These short webinars cover an overview of the qualification, the external assessment, the internal assessments, and the available resources. These can be found on the NCFE YouTube channel, and we've created a V Cert playlist to make finding our webinars easier. The YouTube link is at the end of this webinar. As part of our commitment to shaping smarter learning, we proudly offer skills assessment and diagnostic tools. Whether you're delivering apprenticeships, traineeships, or employment programs, we have initial assessment tools and learning resources to support your provision and set your learners up for success. Our unique diagnostics resources and summative assessments can transform how education providers approach functional skills, GCSE, and the employability skills developments of learners, providing accurate visibility of individual skills and their process. Our tools include Skills Builder, which covers English and Maths learning resources and assessments, Skills Review, which is an online skills analysis tool and progress tracking for apprentices, Skills Work, which is employability skills tests and development, and Skills Portfolio. This is a digital skills portfolio for qualifications, apprenticeships, and training. However, in terms of V-Certs though, the most useful part is probably the Skills Portfolio. Skills Portfolio allow learners to submit evidence and keep records of their work, which will allow centres to manage, monitor, and assess their learners remotely. The assessor is also able to upload evidence for the learners too, so for example, witness statements for the internal assessments. It can allow for easy management of the quality assurance process and complies with the requirements for Ofsted and the Education and Skills Funding Agency. Aside from the skills learners will gain from the V Cert Technical Awards, we have also developed a suite of resources to support the wider curriculum and skills learners will need. These include 32 sessions, each lasting 2 hours, and they cover personal, social, health and economic education, study skills, and employability and career skills. These packs can be found within the teaching materials on QualHub. Your students are unique and your curriculum should be too. With NCFE's other school qualifications, you can create a curriculum to maximise the potential of every student. When developing a Key Stage 4 curriculum for your school, it's important to offer a range of qualifications that will engage your students by embracing their differences. NCFE can support you to develop an enhanced curriculum that helps to improve results across your school. With our range of other qualifications to support enrichment, careers education and personal development, we've got the solution to help you support them onto the next stage of their lives. There is a breadth of choice to support achievement, and the other qualifications we offer in different subject areas are PHSE, RSHE, bite size and functional skills for English and maths, core maths, careers education, information advice and guidance, ICT and digital skills, cash child development and early years, and cash health and social care. We also offer other V Cert qualifications in food and cookery and uniform services. You'll also have access to support from our dedicated provider development team, many of whom are former teachers who can support you to shape and plan a curriculum that helps your students thrive. Check out www.ncfe.org.uk/schools/subject areas for more information and support. Next, I'm going to go through a basic overview of the V Cert Technical Award qualifications. The Level 1 and Level 2 Technical Award is a vocational qualification and, depending on your learners, can be completed at Level 1 or Level 2. Do consider the learners you have to decide which level they should be enrolled on. The grading covers Pass, Merit, Distinction and Distinction Star at both Level 1 and Level 2. There is an external assessment and internally assessed assignments, but they are externally quality assured. While the external assessment covers both Level 1 and Level 2 learners, the internal assessment grading criteria is different for Level 1 and Level 2 learners. If a student is going on the Level 2 qualification, then they need to have achieved a pass grade at Level 2 in each unit, including the external assessment. So they need to get a Level 2 pass in their external assessment and a Level 2 pass in each of their internal assessments. This is slightly different for music technology, however, as there are 2 external assessments. So they need to get at least a Level 1 pass in both and a combined UMS of 120 to achieve a Level 2 grade overall. For example, a Level 1 pass in the written external assessment and a Level 2 distinction in the practical external assessment would meet that requirement. If it appears that a learner isn't going to achieve this, then they can be placed on the Level 1 course and all the work completed by the learner can just be mapped to the Level 1 course with little to no additional work required. These are the subject areas covered by the Level 1 and Level 2 Technical Awards. The final qualification grade comes from combining the internal assessments and the external assessments. For music technology and graphic design, the weighting is a 50-50 split. The external assessment contributes 50% to their final grade, and the internal assessment contributes the other 50%. However, interactive media is different. The external assessment is worth 40%, and the internal assessments contribute 60% to the overall grade. Now, you may be familiar with this chart that shows how VCERT grading matches with the GCSE grading. Level 1 goes up to a maximum of a grade 3 with a distinction star, and the Level 2 goes up to a maximum of a grade 8.5 for a distinction star. It is the Department of Education that has set this as the maximum, as they want the top grades, i.e. the 9s, to be academic GCSE achievement only. VCERTs fit into the open group or the third bucket. You can take up to 3 qualifications from this open group, depending on the qualification size and/or weighting, etc. V Certs can be delivered alongside other qualifications, but please do bear in mind the discount codes applicable to each subject area. So for example, if you were doing a traditional GCSE in music and we're also delivering our Technical Award in Music Technology with the same students, then only one of those will count in the performance points as their content is similar. Next, I'm going to go through QualHub. QualHub will be your primary go-to for resources, specification, assessments, regulations, and much more. You can begin by typing your qualification subject area, qualification code, or even just level 2, and it will give you a suggested list of qualifications. Here is an example page for the graphic design qualification, and if you scroll down, you will see some brief information about the qualification. Here we can see what performance tables this qualification is included in, the guided learning hours, and the total qualification time, which does include home learning that you might set. And if we scroll down further, we can see the support materials, with one of the most important being the qualification specification. In the Assessment Materials tab, you will find past papers, internal assessment tasks, exemplar work, the grading calculator, and much more related to assessment. The breakdown will be the 4 mandatory units within the specification and the external assessment. Teaching materials include schemes of work, PowerPoints, workbooks, etc., which are, as I mentioned earlier, are available to download with no charge, but you'll need your portal login to download them. If you don't have a login, it would usually be your exams officer who can help you with this. And in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we did add an adaptations tab, which contained the latest information and guidance for the qualification in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. For this year, in the academic year of 2021-22, we have updated the adaptations tab to include the specific adaptations for that particular qualification for this year. So please do check out that tab on the adaptations addendums. And finally, if we scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will see the progression map. This shows the routes that learners can take after completing this qualification, whether that is going on to level 3 and/or the career opportunities. Now, many centres do find this useful if they are preparing an intent, implementation and impact statement for the new Ofsted criteria. The other 2 areas of QualHub that you might need are the Delivery and Learner Support tab and the Policies and Documents tab. I'm going to begin with the Delivery and Learner Support tab section first. In the Delivery and Learner Support tab, you will find a range of information to help you with delivering our courses and helping your learners succeed. 4 of the most useful will probably be the ones that are shown on this slide, which include preparing for an external quality assurance visit, the external assessment timetable, and forms such as this one for access arrangements or reasonable adjustments. Like, for example, if a learner needs more time in the external assessment, a scribe, exam papers in Braille, to name but a few. This year, instead of notifying us via a form on our website, from September 2021, centres can complete details of any access arrangements and reasonable adjustments at the point of registration in the NCFE portal. Once the relevant details have been submitted, they will stay with the learner across all the qualification registrations and all future external assessment bookings. And finally, the training and events section, where you can find all our upcoming webinars, face-to-face events, and so on. In the Policies and Documents folder, you will find our regulations, support guides, and other documents like forms if you need to make requests, such as scripts access, late entries, special considerations, and so on. If you're a teacher or an assessor, you'll probably use the course file documents section more, which includes document templates for things like giving feedback to learners. And the other one, which we're going to take a closer look at, is the assessment regulations, which contains some required reading. For the external assessment, there is a document called the Regulation for the Conduct of External Assessments. This is a set of generic instructions regarding preparing for the external assessment administering the assessment, and what to do after the assessment has been completed. For 2021-22, this document has been closely aligned to the equivalent Joint Council for Qualifications, or JCQ, Instructions for Conducting Examinations document, but there are still significant differences for some of our qualifications. Therefore, it's best if this document is read by anyone involved with the external assessments, as if there was a concern raised about the conduct of an external assessment, then the quality assurance team would need to investigate further. So the more people that are familiar with these regulations, then the smaller the chances are of that happening. Please note that from 2021-22 onwards, it is our intention to fully align with JCQ in this regard, although given the nature and complexity of some of our qualifications, there may be appendices or annexes with additional information that supersede content within the main document. Furthermore, from September 2021, we have created 2 new processes utilising digital functionality to support centres and reduce the time spent on administration within centres for your exams officers and contacts. The 2 processes will include accessing the pre-release materials required for some external assessments and submitting electronic learner evidence for some external assessments. More information on this will be shared with centres in our upcoming customer newsletters, along with step-by-step instructions and instructional demo videos. The next document is the Qualification Specific Instructions for Delivery, or QSID, and this gives specific information for the different qualifications. For example, if the assessment needs to be invigilated or supervised, if the use of the internet is permitted, and so on. Now I'd like to go through some more detail on the external assessment. For the external assessment, all the content from the specification must have been taught before the learners sit the external assessment. The qualification is divided into 4 units, and each unit will be in the external assessment, so it's important that the teaching has been completed. The only exception is with graphic design, where the final unit is a portfolio of work that the learners must put together. The external assessment isn't on a set date, but rather there is an assessment window during which the external is to be completed. But there are cut-off dates for booking learners onto that window, and this is usually 2 weeks prior to the start of the assessment, so please do check the external assessment timetable for further details. The external assessment is the same for Level 1 and Level 2 learners, so they won't be put in for different external assessments. There are 2 points in the year when learners can sit their external assessment. These are usually near the start of a new year, from say mid-January to mid-March, and then in May and June time. As always, ensure that you check the external assessment timetable on QualHub. There is one resit opportunity available usually for learners, so it is best practice to plan this into your delivery. The key points for each qualification are: for music technology, there are 2 written papers, each lasting 2 hours long. Learners will need to do both papers in the same week, and computers are needed for the external assessment due to audio files. For graphic design, the external assessment is over 10 hours, and you are given a 4-week window in which to complete it. The use of computers and the internet is permitted. And for interactive media, the external assessment is over 15 hours, so there is a 5-week window in which to complete it. And, like graphic design, the use of a computer and the internet is permitted. On this slide, I'll now explain the external assessment adaptations for 2021-22. The Technical Award qualifications have an external assessment that must usually be sat over a set period of time at your centre. As already mentioned, external assessments will go ahead this academic year unless public health measures deteriorate, in which case this will be reviewed by the government. Previously, where assessments were timetabled to be sat over a set period of time at your centre, we have now updated our assessment variation process to allow centres to use additional test centre locations. Where possible, we have now implemented further adaptations and include added additional assessment opportunities or extended assessment windows, the provision of advanced notification of test topics where possible, and this will support with the preparation for the assessment and allow centres to manage the impact of learning loss in the preparation for assessment. Please note though, we are still waiting for confirmation of details from Ofqual and the DfE on whether these adaptations can be implemented or not. Please do keep your eye out for our customer newsletter for confirmation of these details. Assessment opportunities where students have received results based on teacher assessed grades or tags and centre assessed grades or CAGs do not count towards these retake opportunities. For further information and confirmation on additional assessment opportunities or extended assessment windows and advance notice of exam topics, please do see our updated external assessment timetable guide on Qual Hub in the Delivery and Learner Support tab. I'll now go through more detail on the internal assessments. For each qualification, there are 4 units that need to be completed, and each of those units are internally assessed. Probably the easiest and most efficient method is to teach the unit content first, then issue the coursework for that unit, which should be undertaken independently by the learner. Then repeat this with the next unit and so on, rather than teaching everything and then issuing all the coursework at the same time. Each unit has 3 to 4 learning outcomes that need to be taught. So now let's look at an example with that of music technology. Unit 1 is all about using a digital workstation, and there are 3 specific outcomes: understanding the hardware and software of a digital workstation, creating a musical project, and reviewing the musical project. Within the qualification specification, you'll find all the relevant information for teaching the content, beginning with a unit summary. This gives the skills it is designed to develop, the guided learning hours for that unit, and what the learner should know at the end of the unit. The next page details the grading descriptors for the unit and includes some examples. So for a pass, they would need to use some technical terms, but for a distinction, there must be consistent use of technical terminology. The next page details the assessment and delivery in more detail, and if you are a teacher, you will need to pay close attention to this page. After all the unit content, there is a glossary of terms, and the learner should be familiar with these, what they mean, and how to use them in their work. Regardless of the qualification, grading descriptors will mention using key terminology correctly in each subject area. If you are writing your own assignments, then you must ensure that they are accessible to the learners and that the task can be judged against the assessment objectives. The nature of the tasks and activities must ensure and encourage the learners to produce their own work. As well as being accessible, the assignment must also be able to differentiate between different learners, such as a pass and distinction learners. And of course, cover the required content in the specification. Thankfully though, you don't need to do any of that, as we have assignments prepared and ready for you to use. You may wish to change aspects of the scenario so that it can be more suitably contextualized for your learners. You can find these sample assignment tasks on the qualification specification page on Qual Hub. Click on the Assessment Materials tab, and within that area, you will find those tasks. Now let's take a closer look at one of them. Using the example again of music technology, let's look at our sample assignment for Unit 1 using the digital audio workstation. The first thing on the brief will be the scenario. This is designed to give a real-life situation to help set the assignment in context. And in this case, it is a school that is holding an open day, and you need to provide information about what a digital audio workstation is. After the assignment gives some further details on the specific information that should be included in the learner work. And then next is the way the evidence can be presented. And we've tried to keep this as open as possible to appeal to many different types of learners. On the following page, the grade descriptors are given, which is what the students need to do for that grade and what the assessor will be using when marking the assignment. Next, I'll go through assignment marking and the quality assurance process. Before undertaking any marking, you may want to go onto your qualification page on QualHub. On the Assessment Materials tab, you will find some samples of coursework. This can be useful to see how an exemplar pass or distinction piece of work, and can also inform your teaching when you have examples of the level of detail that might be required at different grades. Here on this slide is an example from graphic design. This is a Unit 2 learning outcome piece of learner work which has been graded as a Level 1 pass. As well as the learner work, there are comments from an external quality assurer explaining why the work is assessed at that grade. We've also run webinars for the different units showing more examples of learners' work and explaining the grading criteria. These can be found on the NCFE YouTube channel, and again we've created a V Cert playlist to make finding these webinars easier. And the YouTube link is at the end of this webinar. So now let's look at the marking and grading, and it's easier to demonstrate with an example. I'm going to use the Level 2 Technical Award in Interactive Media. There are 4 units in this qualification, and within each unit there are learning outcomes. Each of those learning outcomes will need to be assessed and graded. So for the first learning outcome in interactive media, these are the grading descriptors. In this case, a pass is just describing what is needed to develop interactive media products, but for a distinction, you must make some links between them and then explain those links. Then for learning outcome 2, there would be some different grade descriptors, and likewise for learning outcome 3. So let's say now that you have marked the Unit 1 assignment, and these are the grades achieved in each of the learning outcomes: pass, merit, and a merit. The final grade for the unit will be the lowest grade the learner achieved in a learning outcome. At this point, there is no compensatory grading within the unit. As the unit is made up of 3 learning outcomes, the learner would need to demonstrate the same level of competence in each learning outcome to judge that unit to be at that overall Level 2. When you've graded all the units, you can see there is a mix of grades achieved in the different units. The final grade won't be a pass, as at this point there is now compensatory grading when it comes to combining the units at the end and determining an overall grade. Using the grades from the previous slide, so that was a pass for Unit 1, a distinction for Unit 2, a distinction for Unit 3, and a merit for Unit 4, would give you these UMS numbers. In total then, they will have achieved 188 UMS for the internal assessments. A Level 2 pass in the external assessment is worth between 96 to 111 UMS points, depending on how many marks they got in the external assessment. So if they got a Level 2 pass in their external assessment, only just or right on the threshold, then their UMS would be 96, which will bring their total UMS score to 284. Which places them on a Level 2 merit overall. The UMS is different for the different subject areas due to the different amount of guided learning hours, but the calculation is the same. Thankfully, you don't need to sit with a calculator working these out, because in QualHub, on the Assessment tab on your qualification page, you'll find the grading guide, which is what you've just seen on the previous slide, and information about how many UMS equates to which grade. Secondly, there is a grading calculator, where you can select either the Level 1 or Level 2 qualification, depending on which one the learner is enrolled on. You can then select the grades that they achieved in the internal assessments and what they have achieved in the external assessment, or what you predict if they haven't sat it yet, and it will calculate an estimated final grade for you. Please note that this is an estimated grade due to the UMS range available for the external assessment. Now that all the learner work has been marked and graded, the next important step is to have it internally quality checked by another member of staff, known as the internal quality assurer. The IQA will need to be knowledgeable and competent in the subject area they are checking, and they shouldn't be involved with the teaching, as you can't quality assure your own work. They need to sample a reasonable number of learners and include a combination of learners, assessors, and satellite centres if applicable. This will depend on how many learners you have, but we do recommend a size of 50% if it is the first time the qualification is being delivered, or if the assessor is new to the process. The internal quality assurer, or the IQA, will provide feedback to the assessor, and once all that has been completed, the grade should then be submitted to us via the portal. The final stage is then the external quality check. As soon as your learners are registered on the portal, you will be assigned an external quality assurer, or an EQA. It is good practice to register your learners early to have access to your EQA, who can provide subject-specific help and support to you and your centre. You're entitled to 2 free visits from your EQA per cohort, and any additional visits are chargeable. The ideal scenario is to have your EQA visit after the first 2 units are done. This way, they can then provide feedback on good practice and can advise if there are any improvements that are required, which can then inform you for the following units. When the EQA does check the work, they will either agree with the grading and those grades can be banked, or they will disagree and those grades will be rejected. If they are rejected, the assessor will then need to reassess and regrade the work. The IQA will also need to recheck the work, and then a new grade can be submitted to NCFE. Now the grades have been accepted by your EQA, you can give the learners one additional opportunity to improve and redraft their work. We do have some documents that can help you with the process, and these are contained in the Delivery and Learner Support tab. If you click on Preparing for an EQA review and scroll down that page, there are some useful documents included in this section, and these ones are quite helpful. These are the first things for ensuring you know what to do and what should be done and should be in place prior to an EQA visit. The second one contains useful documents for tasks like giving feedback to learners, planning and recording your IQA sample, and so on. Now, you don't need to use these documents, but you do need to keep records. You can also find the course file documents in the Policies and Documents tab on QualHub. Here is an example document for the assessor to give feedback to the learner. The feedback can be given to the learners after the EQA visit has occurred. The feedback can't be overly specific and directed, so it might be best to use the grading descriptors to assist with the feedback that you give. So for example, you might say something like, you have described A, but you need to explain the importance of A. Or you have used some key terminology, but you need to use the key terms more consistently throughout your work. Again, these are just suggestions, but they are available for you to use if you would like to. So now I'm just going to summarise the internal assessment process. You begin by teaching the unit content and follow that with a unit assignment. The learners complete the work, hand it back to the assessor, and it is marked and graded. Then the IQA will check the work to see if they agree with the assessor decisions. The agreed grade will then be submitted to NCFE via the portal. You then arrange a visit or a review from your EQA, who will check the work and either agree and bank the grades or disagree, and a different grade will end up being banked after you have acted upon the EQA's feedback. Learners can then have one resubmission attempt to revise and redraft their work. On this slide, I will explain the adaptations that have been put in place for this year for the internal assessments, so for the academic year of 2021-22. All the content must still be delivered and all the assessment criteria is still to be assessed. Internal assessments can be undertaken remotely for students where required and where possible. We will also continue to offer remote EQA reviews. Further guidance on how to prepare for this can be found in Preparing for a Remote Review on QualHub. We believe that the flexibilities that centres already have with respect to the types of evidence that they may use to meet knowledge and skills-based assessment criteria are sufficient to enable more students to continue to mitigate the ongoing COVID-related risks. This includes the continuation of the use of alternative assessment methods or evidence where needed or required. You can find further evidence and guidance on the preparation of portfolios of evidence on our website in the NCFE Guide to Designing and Creating Learner Portfolios of Evidence for Assessment. To support with learning loss, remote learning where required, or where centres may experience continued or localised disruption to learning, we've created guidance to support a more streamlined approach to assessment and to increase flexibility. We have updated our guidance on our website in the Good Practice Guide and continue to permit the use of centre-devised assessments. We appreciate that to create and capture evidence for the skills aspect of these assessments, students may need to access specialist facilities and equipment. As our existing guidance permits to mitigate COVID-related challenges in accessing facilities and/or equipment, we would encourage centres to consider the following. So, for example, the use of expert witness testimonies to confirm the observation of a student competence over time where direct observation is not possible. Also, to consider the use of observation of simulated activity to evidence the demonstration of competence where direct observation is also not possible. Carefully consider how to schedule teaching, learning and assessment activity during the year, recognising that it may not be possible to access specialist facilities and/or equipment in all the weeks. The use of remote technology is prohibited within early years, schools, childcare and health and social care settings, where there is a potential risk of the users of the service or their carers or families being inadvertently seen or heard. This includes the use of all recording and streaming devices such as iPads, mobile phones, laptops and tablets. Please note that technology must not be used to view assessments remotely, even when not recording. So, for example, assessors cannot complete remote observations to prove competency by viewing students live using remote technology. The use of remote technologies, however, could be considered to support aspects of the student's performance. So, for example, this may include planning sessions, online meetings, and remote activities in which the student is contributing and where the assessor could also attend remotely or observe through the use of technology. In these examples, the student must be in an environment away from any other service users. The use of technologies could also be considered for capturing expert witness testimonies. We would also encourage centres to consider how they might use alternative and/or digital solutions to gather and store evidence, including, for example, centre-set short response or multiple choice tests, professional discussion recordings, annotated learning plans, and photos and videos. Recently, we've partnered up with VEO, who offer a digital solution for video-enhanced observations. VEO is a secure video online platform for recording and tagging videos. It offers a more efficient way to mark NCFE skills assessments, which can be undertaken remotely. VEO empowers students and teachers by providing a simple and secure way to capture observation-based assessments that saves time while preparing students to pass skill-based assessments. The platform allows you to digitally record and mark practical assessments online and remotely. Please see veo.co.uk/NCFE for further details. For music technology, there have been some further assessment adaptations for Level 1 and Level 2, Unit 3, studio recording, including Learning Outcome 1, 2 and 3. For further information, please do see the adaptation addendums for 2021-22 on the relevant qualification specification page in QualHub. So we have reached the end of the webinar. Thank you for attending the webinar this afternoon, and I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please do pop them into the question box and I will respond in a timely manner after the webinar. However, if you do have any further questions, then please do feel free to contact me directly using my email address at kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk, or if I'm unavailable, our general email is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk, and do visit ncfe.org.uk/V Certs for more information on our V Cert Technical Awards. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, I have also included some useful references for you to refer to if you require further information and support. These references include Key Stage 4 discount codes, our YouTube channel, our skills assessment tool, our COVID-19 response hub, the external assessment timetable, and the adaptation blueprint for 2021-22. Please, at this point, please do feel free to leave the webinar. And when you do leave the webinar, I'd really appreciate if you can complete the short evaluation that will help us make any future improvements and/or changes to the support and services that we provide. Again, thanks everyone for your time today, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, take care and stay safe.